Alright, here we go. Moment we've been waiting for. This is Ryan, and this is Hard to Kill 2022. Um, Hopefully, I have more excitement and energy because this is where the actual booking starts, and hopefully, because of that, I will say less. And I will apologize if you hear any noises in the background. I just fed my cats and they are excited too. Before we get started, I want to address a couple things that happened in game. First of all, WWE in this universe made some new signings. Well, not new signings. They re-signed Bray Wyatt. So if you're expecting to see an Impact game where what if Impact signed Bray Wyatt, that's not this game. And they also signed Velveteen Dream back. And I had no plans to sign him either, considering uh, a good chunk of this game was to get some of the undesirables out of Impact. Um, no real loss there. In AEW, CM Punk won their championship, their world championship. Beat Adam Page on an episode of Rampage. Apparently only in front of like 190 something people, so I don't know what's going on there. Um, yeah, so that's happening. And then today, for Hard to Kill, I had a backstage incident that I already took care of. Um, I think backstage incidents are funny in this game because you're expecting something huge, and then you click on it, and it's Sam Beal organized a poker tournament. So good for him. That's pretty much it. That pretty much catches us up to Hard to Kill, and let's book the show. Well, book shows already pretty much booked. Let's start. Hopefully, I didn't screw anything up. The pre-show we have uh, Raj Singh and Shera defeating Brian Myers' Learning Tree of VSK and Zicky Dice when Raj pins Dice. Um, Segment rating of 19. Ian Riccaboni debuted his announcer gimmick. Basically, the story to this one is well, I wasn't sure if Raj and Shera were a tag team, but I paired them anyway. And basically, VSK and Zicky continuing their downward spiral. Um, and they were basically now losing to some of the lowest of the low on the roster. So to follow that up, we have a segment where Brian Myers appears on the Tron, I guess, basically filming himself on his phone. He sees VSK and Zicky in the ring. They're arguing amongst themselves about the loss. Brian Myers is like, guys, you've disappointed me for the last time. I'm gonna have to make some changes. I'm not saying if anyone's cut yet or not, but I will be back on Impact next week, and you guys better be back too. I'm gonna some changes are gonna have to be made, and that gets a 33. And then in the other pre-show match, um, Mike Bailey defeated Ace Austin, Chris Bay, and Laredo Kid in a four-way match with a segment rating of 26. Basically, this is to show off how awesome Mike Bailey is. Technically, this is his debut, but they don't have. He was pretty much already a roster member in this save, so he's not technically debuting, but he is. But this is his first match, and this is a showcase to show him off. I just kind of wish the ratings were higher for these. Uh, the Hard to Kill proper. Starting off with Chris Saban versus Jonathan Gresham for the Ring of Honor title, even though technically the Ring of Honor title isn't in the game. We're going to pretend it's on the line. And Jonathan Gresham makes Chris Saban tap with an octopus hold with a segment rating of 35. Um, the story, I wanted to do an angle, but I could not find the announcer angles, or I couldn't find any announcer angles I could do. So this is basically Ian Riccaboni's debut as the announcer. He is at the announcer's table with Matt Stryker and D'Lo Brown, and he is a special guest for this match. But they actually, well, D'Lo, I guess you can say, invites him to stay and commentate the rest of the show. And Stryker's kind of like, no, no, no. Kind of, doesn't want to be upstaged by the new guy, but D'Lo Brown asks him like, "You want to stay for the rest of the show?" And Rick Bonnie's like, "Yeah, I'll continue. It'd be a pleasure." Um, so the Ring of Honor contingent that we have so far is kind of getting off on the right foot here in Impact, and that actually, uh, they hear some word coming from the back about our next segment. Scott D'Amore is backstage. He announces that since Eric Young is injured, we're going to say he got injured in the brawl that ended Impact, and that Joe Doring is quote unquote stuck in Japan due to conflicting booking. Hardcore War that was 5-on-5 is now 3-on-3. Um, they've decided it's going to be Gallows and Anderson and Diener versus Slater and Rhino and Eddie Edwards. The story here is that Slater really wants revenge, and so does Rhino. Um, and that Rich Swann and Willie Mack were willing to give up their spots as long as they got something in return later. So we shall see about that. And that got a 29 rating. And that technically books Rhino face. Um, he's been a heel for some reason. Here's the Knockouts Tag Team Championship: The Inspiration versus The Influence. Um, the Inspiration defend successfully when Jesse McCabe pins Madison Rain with a handful of tights. But the real story is not just a handful of tights. Basically, the story is even though these are both heel teams, Madison Rain is kind of acting as the face in peril. Eventually, she goes for the hot tag for Tennille, and Tennille drops off of the apron, refuses the tag, and everyone's like, "What's going on?" Madison is shocked. Caleb at ringside is shocked. Um, and that allows Jesse to roll up Madison with a handful of tights. And for good measure, Caleb with a K did some good work at ringside. Overall segment rating of 33. Um, so after the match, Tennille takes the mic and she starts celebrating with the Inspiration. And she tells Madison Rain, these two women are practically my sisters. We're all from Australia. We all came up the same way. We all had, we're practically sisters. And Madison, you do not deserve to hang out with us. In fact, I am kicking you to the curb, and I have been inspired by these two women, and I hope to do what they have done. You look at their shoulders, they have the Knockouts title. Someday, maybe I'll have the Knockouts uh, world title around my waist. When she says that, the Inspiration are kind of like chuckling and they're like, yeah, right, but whatever. They got their point across. Tennille is done with the Influence, and now she has aligned herself with the Inspiration, and that got a segment of 39. I didn't technically want to turn Madison Rain face, considering she's not really doing like the actual turning, so I didn't really know how to book that otherwise. So basically, she's just saying, screw you, Madison, screw you, Caleb. I'm going with them. Hardcore War. Um, Eddie Edwards and Heath Slater and Rhino defeat the Good Brothers in Diener with a 36 rating. Eddie Edwards here pins Carl Anderson. He gets the actual win. Diener was the weak link, which was kind of probably to be expected. Um, Gallows and Rhino were off their game, but that seems to wrap up their whole issue for now. Heath Slater and Rhino, even though Heath Slater did not get revenge on his supposed beatdown from last week or from Impact, Eddie Edwards did get the win for their team. For the X Division title, Trey Miguel retains against Steve Macklin with a 23 rating. The story here is that if Steve Macklin cannot win the X Division title in this match, he cannot challenge for the title as long as Trey Miguel remains champion. So, since Steve Macklin did not win, he has a temper tantrum and attacks the referee after the match while Trey Miguel celebrates, and that got a 30 rating. Knockouts Ultimate X for the number one contendership. Rosemary wins, becomes the number one contender to the Knockouts Championship. Rachel Ellering is in this match. Like I mentioned, originally she was replaced by Alicia Edwards for some reason. I decided to keep her in. Basically, Rachel and Ellering and Jordan Grace do kind of work as their tag team until, typical falls apart. Um, Lady Frost flips off of something high. Um, there's a spot where Chelsea Green comes very close to retrieving it and, in fact, dangles off of the X, but she slips and gets caught in a power bomb from Jordan Grace. But eventually, it is Rosemary that retrieves the X and becomes number one contender. Josh Alexander versus Jonah. Josh Alexander wins with a Tombstone Piledriver, segment rating of 35. Basically, you got two tough dudes pushing each other to their limits. Basically, getting, you know, continuing to build Josh Alexander as a badass and hopefully on his way towards becoming world champion once again. Jonah put up a good fight, but it wasn't quite enough. And after the match, Jonah decides to show some respect, and Josh Alexander and Jonah shake hands with a rating of 30. Um, I know technically that's Ring of Honor's thing, and I almost had two handshaking segments on this show, but um, I think from here on out we will probably turn Jonah face. Technically as a heel, even though I, kind of would book him, consider him a tweener right now. Um, but basically, they've earned each other's respect tonight, and we'll see what goes from there. With a segment rating of 1, we debut Roxy, the Ring of Honor Women's Champion. She is basically sitting at ringside for the next match, which is the Texas Death Match for the Knockouts Championship. She has debuted a fan favorite gimmick, and she's gotten a rating of very good. But she must not be over because the segment got a 1 rating. Um, so the Texas Death Match for the Knockouts Championship. Deonna Purrazzo defeats Mickie James. Um, Basically, Deanna Prazo comes out on her own. She is also showing off her AAA Reina de Reinas title belt, while Mickie James has the Impact Knockouts title. Um, those will come into play later. Basically, they have their match. Eventually, they will. They both decide to brandish their titles as weapons and knock each other out. Um, Somehow, Deanna has the wherewithal to put her arm over Mickie James to get the pinfall and get the 10 count, or get the 3 count. But then in the ensuing 10 count, Mickie James struggles to get up and is not able to do so within the count of 10. It's shown in instant replay that the reason this is because a hand has popped out from in between the ring apron, well, the hard part of the ring and the apron, and has drugged Mickie James, held her down to ensure that she would not get back up to her feet and that Deanna Purrazzo would win. This is Matthew Raywoldt. He's technically turning heel in the game because he was a face for whatever reason. Um, they made a deal that he would not be at ringside and he would not interfere, but somehow he has. Um, Deanna Purrazzo is now a double champion with the Knockouts title, the AAA title, and possibly the Ring of Honor World title as she faces Roxy on Impact this coming week. The segment rating of 31. Mickie James was really off her game. The storyline will continue, especially when you consider Matt Riddle has interfered and was not supposed to. And yes, you would turn. And after the match, Deanna celebrates with her title with a segment rating of 32. Matt Cardona comes out to the ring for the main event. We decided to give him an elaborate entrance with a rating of 26, kind of to hopefully get the rating up. Didn't look like it did that much, but also to put over the fact that, as he mentioned before, Hard to Kill is basically his 1 year anniversary. He's come for the Impact World title, and he wants to make sure he wins tonight. But he's going to have to go through Moose and W. Morrissey to do that. And unfortunately, he doesn't. Moose pins Matt Cardona with a surprise cradle and successfully defends the Impact World title. Basically, Moose plays a coward most of the match. He rolls out of the ring and tells Cardona and Morrissey that, they'll face each other and he'll jump in when he feels it's right. He picks his spots, but, eventually that doesn't go wrong or doesn't go his way and they will double team him. But the end of the match comes when Cardona sees Morrissey kind of stumbling on his feet. He thinks about finishing him off. He goes up to the second and top rope, more so the second than the top rope, and hits the top big man with a radio silence, putting him down. But he can't capitalize on the pin. He gets up. He's kind of clutching his back after doing that move with such height and such velocity coming down on his back. And that moment was all it took for Moose to hit him with his stupid flippy ass spear and put him, and also, sorry, that was my cat, also keep him down for the 3 with a segment rating of 33. But before the show ends, as Moose is celebrating, Josh Alexander comes out. He up on the stage and he's looking, staring daggers at Moose, and suddenly he bolts towards the ring, and Moose and Josh Alexander just start fighting. More so Josh than Moose. Moose tries to run away. Basically, every security person on hand and roster member pour out of the backstage. Sorry, that was my cat again. Pours out of the backstage to separate them. Moose tries to run away. Josh jumps over the pile of humanity a few times and, gets some shots in on Moose, but Moose wants none of it. And that basically ends the show with a 38. We finish. Overall rating of 31. Shows lost popularity in 2 regions but increased in 16. The general feeling is that Impact does not have enough interesting storylines going on. That's because I need to make more. And the weeks coming off of Impact, we will show that. Who do we want to? Uh, let's say Josh Alexander should be. I don't want to rip them into. Point out as a good example. We'll congratulate Rosemary for winning. Given some encouragement. I don't know how to consider these as good performances. We will compliment Deanna Prazzo on a good performance, and we will make that speech. Josh Alexander is pleased. Rosemary is pleased. Deanna is pleased. Pleased. Sorry. All right. So yeah, that was Hard to Kill. Let's see what the day after brings us. So we are back. Last night's Impact Hard to Kill drew 2,300 fans. The feedback has been pretty good, especially for a company of their size. Basically, when I run these, I just run them in generic arenas. I really don't care about where these shows are ran and trying to figure out the perfect arena for them. I did see a show in my office thing. Matt Cardona has entered the final month of his contract. We will see. I probably should do some renegotiation and hopefully do enough that he does not sign with WWE again, even though they have sent feelers out to him. Somehow Rhino and Matthew Raywell did not turn heel or do their turns, even though I'm pretty sure you guys saw that I confirmed those. But let's go back, see if anything cool happened. Zeus was kicked out of Purple Haze. Nick Aldis was said to be the star of the show for NWO or NWA. So at least I'm outdrawing people. The Robert Stone brand has supposedly ended. Atlantis has won the CML World Title. Dragon Gate has, what Dragon Gate Network has got a broadcasting deal. Erwin Stevens to enter a storyline with Nick Aldis. No one cares. Jim Cornette has been hired by the NWA, so that fits. Strictly Business has made some changes. There's a new team of not the power team of Tim Storm and Homicide that we have wanted. Davey Richards has won the MLW World Title, defeating Hammerstone in MLW. Eddie Kingston regains the AAW title. Um, Rob Naylor is taking control of Shimmer. Good for him. Manders and Nate Webb are a team in AAW. Johnny Gargano has re-signed with WWE, so he is going back there. 440 is being disbanded in GCW. MLW hire Ivelisse Velez. Okay. AIW has successfully completed negotiations with Matt Cardona to extend their deal, so that has, that's probably good news for us as long as we can do that as well. Um, No Way Jose is going back to WWE. Rene Paquette has joined Defy. And that's it. Let's see what NWA's show. Da, 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 da. See, Tim Storm and Homicide team, but they're not an actual team. MLW. Davey Richards defeated Hammerstone for the world title. All right, so yeah, that's pretty much Hard to Kill. Um, I don't know how long Impact will take to book, but basically, starting now, you will start to see storylines come together, new faces, hopefully showing up. Um, I have some mail that I need to attend to, but yeah, basically now I start to reach out to new faces and hope they uh, come on board. So hopefully we'll start to see that with the next video. And thank you for watching. And I will see you all later. Goodbye.